Teens on a year that changed everything. Coming of age. In words, images, and video, teens across the US show how they met life's challenges in the midst of a pandemic. What has it been like to be a teenager during the first year of a historic pandemic? The New York Times, through its Learning Network, asked the question, and more than 5,500 responses poured in. In words and images, audio and video, they reported that it was, in many ways, a generation defining disaster. Being trapped inside and missing the milestones that ordinarily mark coming of age in America was lonely, disorienting, depressing, and even suffocating. But many also surprised themselves. They bonded with siblings, discovered nature, found small comforts in Zoom school, played games, worked out, cooked, wrote, sang, danced, painted, and made videos. And perhaps most important, at a time of life focused on figuring out who you are, they reinvented themselves. But also, so many coped admirably. This generation will be forever changed. As one 16-year-old put it, making history is way overrated. This week, a year after the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic, we share their stories in this special project. We chose a handful of entries to show what teenagers have lost and what they have found. Below each image, you can find edited and condensed excerpts from their artist statements that can tell you more about the work. No matter how old you are, as you read, you might ask yourself a question too. How has this year challenged and changed your generation? 1A. Generation trapped in its bedroom. For some, it was a time of reflection. For many, it was a dark period of isolation. For a generation, it was a defining collective experience. Parrish Andre, 18. Whippany, New Jersey, Sunina Chen, 16. If you're reading this, take 5 deep breaths. Wasn't that nice? Just breathe. Became a mantra I told myself to get through the simple things. Taking the time to reflect, I realized why the saran wrap was suffocating me. I was the one who pulled it tight. Yes, it was placed there by my responsibilities and the uncertainty of our world, but I had the ability to let go. I let go of everything that wasn't serving me and took a deep breath. Chicago, Stevia Nadoy, 18. Ever since I was a child, I looked forward to my 18th birthday. I thought I would suddenly gain years of knowledge and have the power to change the world. Little did I know how difficult the year of my retirement from childhood would be. When murmurs of quarantining were becoming a reality, my family and I were stuck. My mom, an essential worker and a single parent, worked all day, while my younger siblings and I attended school. On top of trying to graduate from high school, I had to be a mother for a preschooler and a grade schooler. My 18th birthday came and went, and I was still the same Stevia. I look at the last few months and realize this is what growing up in a global crisis looks like for low-income families. Being in quarantine made me realize how much I have been robbed of my childhood and that I've been an adult for the majority of my life. My photo represents waking up daily with the stress of not knowing what life is going to throw at you, but going through the motions anyway. I took this photo one morning as my siblings were still sleeping 4 feet away from me. The light was coming through the window so beautifully, and it was one of the few moments of silence I had experienced in March. Baltimore, Parrish Andre, 18. I drew this series in mid-April while sitting silently on many Zoom calls. In quarantine, my interactions with other people were all fit neatly into little rectangles on my screen. Being young is about stretching and growing. We pull away from our parents, our homes, our schools, But as COVID-19 struck our communities, we were reined in to all the situations that youth is about diverging from. For some, it was a time of reflection. For many, it was, excuse me, it was a dark period of isolation. For a generation, it was a defining collective experience. Frisco, Texas, Camilla Salinas, 16. I wake up, go to school, and sit at my desk. I do some work, the bell rings. I go to the next class. I do some work, the bell rings. I go to the next class. I get home, sit down, do my homework, and catch up on a show. I go to sleep, and I repeat. Although my algebra class can range from having 5 to 30 students in a class, it feels as though there is only you. And for students learning from home, the situation is worse. They are literally by themselves. San Diego, Paloma Ezet, 16. For Paloma Ezet in San Diego, common high school things such as spending time with your friends and going to football games and dances are near impossible to do. Common high school things such as spending time with your friends and going to football games and dances are near impossible to do this year. Being in high school in 2020 is an experience like no other. It is gloomy, lonely, and frustrating. Dallas, Ryan Daniel, 18. This piece, a picture I sketched of my little sister inside a box I created, depicts the entrapment and isolation felt by so many people during quarantine. This is the new normal for my generation, but we have grown together and are now capable of deeply connecting through shared experience. Memphis, Jada Murray, 17. From a young age, I looked at the world with the lens of a dreamer. Flame-colored sunlight would dance through the windows, and water would trickle below trees. I created scenes in my head until I found that a pen and a paintbrush could do the same. I wanted to have those pictures and worlds to have substance in reality. That same inspiration drives my creative process as a teenager. Before COVID-19 hit our American shores, I felt an increasing sense of dread. 2 weeks later, my county issued a lockdown, and all my friends either found themselves at home or were recklessly disobeying the order. I had so many feelings: fear, anxiety, sadness, loneliness. It was like they just took turns and looped one to the next. Elizabeth, New Jersey, Aisha Musa, 16. These are messages of conversation I had with my sister on March 24th, 2020. It was the first time I went with my parents to our grocery store, and I forgot to wear the mask before wearing the hijab. So I texted my sister to ask her how, and she explained it. Remembering to wear the mask first is something that I still struggle with to this day. Suhalia Sirajul Islam, 15, from Brooklyn, New York. Okay, what's it like being a teenager in quarantine? It's the same, I guess, except time passes more slowly, and you're not allowed to go outside. It's feeling exhausted from all the schoolwork and touch-starved because your friends aren't there. Suddenly, the 2-bedroom apartment you share with 5 family members begins to feel cramped. It's feeling terrified because you share a room with your COVID-positive aunt who refuses to see a doctor, and you can hear your dad coughing through the walls and your mom at 2 a.m. reciting Quran and rushing to make tea for both of them. She gets sick too, and suddenly you're failing classes because you can't keep up with your helping your siblings in classwork and housework and the sick adults at home. Things start to look up though. The weather gets warmer and your family gets better. Being a teenager in quarantine is radical acceptance. Things happened and things are happening. You'll be okay. A summer of awakening. The Black Lives Matter movement has encouraged me and an entire generation of young people to speak up. Christian Lee, 17. Chula Vista, California. Edelina Bagapuro, 17. This photo encompasses my own identity as an LGBTQ plus Filipina Americana woman. It highlights my role as an ally to the movements of social justice. No longer do I talk about boys or paint my nails, but start to recognize the part I can play in fighting for justice and how to tackle my implicit biases. Although this was not the summer I was expecting, it truly has brought on tremendous personal growth, which I would not trade for anything. La Habra, California. Christian Lee, 17. The Black Lives Matter movement has encouraged me and an entire generation of young people to speak up. I photographed one of my best friends wearing the American flag because I thought it would be a simple but profound act of protest against racially motivated violence. Carlsbad, California. Madeline Mack. When the news surfaced of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, I was distraught and in need of support. My moms are always here for me, but there is something special and necessary about connecting with your peers. I needed a way forward and assumed others felt similarly, so I decided to create Mad's Book Club. The club has gone beyond what I imagined. When uncertainty strikes, we need connection and community more than ever. Being a teenager is about finding the connection that powers you onward. Tenafly, New Jersey. Rebecca Wong, 17. 2020 didn't ignite the waves of anti-racism. 2020 did not ignite the waves of Asian racism. It was already there. I've seen the Asian community strive to be more American. I saw my family disassociate themselves from the community. I purposefully never learned Cantonese in hopes of making myself more American. I thought was in my best interest. I erased my own culture willingly in hopes of fitting in. It's always purposeful, whitewashing the strive to Americanize in hopes of being accepted. But you'll still see the person I tried to erase. I cannot wash my culture away. It will always stay. The racism will always stay. At least paint is washable. Hermosa Beach, California. Maddox Chen, 15. This photograph was taken on Sunday, November 8th on my iPhone, propped up on my cramped white desk against the wall of my room sanctuary in my house. Using my preferred medium of Lego bricks, I created a physical mock-up of my typical spot for the past 8 months. Glued to a screen, whether that is my phone, laptop, or the TV. Politics has dominated everything this year, from racial, social, economic inequities to the simple act of wearing a mask. One cannot refer to this time without mentioning the diametrical struggle between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Brooklyn, Joyce Wang, 14. Teenagers took this year to think about what's happening in the world. We have to stand up for ourselves and make a change. And we all came together to create the Black Lives Matter movement. Some teenagers who didn't go out there and protest helped from home. We signed petitions, gave donations, educated ourselves on topics we should have known about a long time ago. Matthew Cole, California. I took this picture with my phone in my home in Humboldt County while wildfires raged nearby early in September. The air was toxic, so you had to wear a mask when you went outside. I was forced to be alone with myself, which led me to create art and poetry with deeper meaning than I had ever been able to create before. I've welcomed the alone time. The number of things that I've learned or relearned about myself has made this a time of discovery, a time where I get to put my needs first, where I can feel comfortable in my own skin for the entirety of a day, every day, a week, for months on end.